Hello and welcome to SecureWorld Behind the Scenes, our exclusive interview series. This is Tom Bechtold, your host for today's program. Thank you for joining us. Today, Bruce Sussman from the SecureWorld media team will be talking with Stephen Hilt at Trend Micro. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our special guests. Stephen Hilt is a senior threat researcher at Trend Micro. Stephen focuses on general security research, threat actors, malware behind attacks, and industrial control system security. Stephen enjoys breaking things and putting them back together with a few spare parts. Stephen is a world-renowned researcher, having spoken multiple times at DerbyCon, Black Hat US, HITB, and RSA. His research has gained him Dark Reading Top Hacks of the Year twice. Working at Digital Bond, Stephen became an Nmap contributor where he wrote Nmap scripts for ICS and other mainstream protocols. This work took him into becoming an expert on ICS protocols and co-authored the book Hacking Exposed Industrial Control Systems, ICS and Scada Security Secrets and Solutions. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Bruce Sussman for our interview today. Bruce, take it away.
Thank you, Tom, for the introduction. And Stephen, thank you so much for taking some time out from your research that I know you are constantly doing at Trend Micro. And I will just say this, that our team has looked at the study on critical infrastructure and the vulnerabilities in the water and energy industries that you've just published. It's 65 pages before you even get to the citation. So much rich information. But, Stephen, we just want to unpack some of the key details of that in the next few minutes. And the first question I thought I'd start with is, could you briefly describe the methodology, how you went about this study, and then tell us about the exposed systems you found, in many cases HMIs that were literally open to the world.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me today. To start about the methodology, we originally started with the research to look and see what kind of systems we could find that were exposed, specifically in water and then energy with oil and gas as a primary focus. The reason why we wanted to focus on a specific area was because we can find HMIs and ICS other devices online, but we wanted to see if we could be more targeted in what we were looking for. So what we ended up doing was we partnered a couple pieces of open source intelligence and using Shodan to find the information, originally find some HMIs that were exposed. Most of them are exposed via VNC on Shodan, but how do you determine where they are and what they are provides a little more complexity to the problem, where we would look at the information and Shodan keep a history of the screenshots. So we would roll through some of those screenshots and look to see if there had been any previously seen imageries of other pages that the operator may have been on, and then in some cases we were able to determine what kind of systems they were based off of what other pages we could see. Plus, we could also, look at the titles and things like that, and partner with where it was in the world. We partnered that with a technique that we called GeoStalking, which then we would find one, say, oil derrick that was exposed, and then we would see in an area if we could find other ones that were exposed by looking at the IP coordinates, and then cross-overlaying those on a map to see if we could find, more of a systemic problem in a region.
Okay, yeah, so that's some of the methodology, and that is fascinating. I had missed the point about geostalking. Tell me about the HMIs that you found, and I think what surprised me, I don't know about those in ICS and Scada if they'll be surprised, but you actually would have had the opportunity to control some of these plants and processes based on what you found. Is that right?
Yeah, so most of these systems are going to be kind of more of your touch panels, where you would walk up and physically touch a panel. They've been exposed via VNC to also view or monitor or remotely control these devices. But where an operator would be able to go up and touch a panel, you can go ahead and click they're unauthorized with no authentication from that aspect. So you can operate remotely whatever a physical human there could actually touch the touch screen and close relays, open pumps, anything depending on what the system was.
What do you think this says, your findings in the report? What do you think they say about the state of ICS and Scada security?
So I've spent a lot of time in the industrial control systems security aspect, and looked at a lot of facilities and done a lot of work in the space specifically. So it's kind of hard to say what it says about the state of the security, because what we're looking at for the most part are not very small, but smaller entities and asset owners that don't have full-time support or things like that. For an example, one of the oil place we found that was in the U.S., they have like 3-4 oil wells that are relatively small. How we know that is because the states usually publish a list of geocoordinates where these oil wells are. So once we found one that was exposed, we found the company, and then we were able to find other places that this company would have likely the same setups. Only in this case, we did reach out to the companies that we could identify as well to help them try to get some of their information, and then have them see if we can get them to remove the exposed systems. With that, we at Trend Micro believe that a lot of times, and we wrote about this in our paper, that a lot of these smaller places are going to start being your test beds for larger attacks, also where criminals can start learning more about each of these systems and what they do and what the potential consequences are. That way they can do it on a system that's likely not being as monitored, as well as possibly one of their more primary larger targets. So I think from the state of the ICS and Scada security, we're on a right path. We're doing really good things, and everyone out there is doing really good things. It's just we need to be more diligent and helping out some of those other smaller companies.
Yes, and I noted that one of the points you made in your report was that even the smaller pieces of this now smarter connected network of energy and water operations, could pose threats to bigger pieces of the puzzle there. So that's it. It's all interconnected. That's incredible. Talking about you just mentioned that it could be a test bed for cyber criminals who have access to these systems more easily. What are some of the other real world threats that you kind of detailed in the report as a result of your findings?
So we go through some of the older findings and and other things that just cyber criminals and nation states are uptaking their interest into industrial control systems and attacking it. We see this uptake happen every year, and there's more and more that's happening. Recently there's been, as we call them, Pawn Storm, APT-28, as other people call them, are starting to get into looking into industrial control systems, as well as other well-known nation-state groups. So the threats are there, and people are going after them. And luckily, there's a lot of good researchers in this space also trying to help be on the forefront and find vulnerabilities and report them responsibly and try to get things fixed as soon as we can. That goes from anything from exposed VNCs, such as we majority of what we saw in this research was trying to identify that to actual, exploitable vulnerabilities in control system software, systems, and other things.
Okay, thank you for sharing on that. Yes, and there's more details in the report, many more, so that's fantastic. One of the other things that you touched on was the cybercrime underground and how it is targeting the water and energy industries, and that started on page 47 of the report. I know that you took a look at the dark web and the cyber underground. What's being discussed, or what's happening with relation to cyber criminals in this space?
So much like we just discussed, there is a big uptick. This is something that I have been monitoring over the last few years. Myself and several of my coworkers who are also on the paper as well. We take a look at this, and it's something we just kind of keep track of. If you go back to a paper I wrote in 2015 called the Gas Pod Experiment, there's some mentions of that. It was there was several forums in which we could find where people were discussing and asking for industrial control systems exploits or wanting to target and attack control systems. From where that was, 2-3 examples we could find to the multiple pages we have now in our new report that shows between 2015 and 2018, we have seen a significant gain in interest in talking about these systems online, specifically in the dark web and underground forums.
Well, lastly, let's talk about the opportunity from this report. If information is power, how can security leaders in these sectors that you focused on in your report use it to help secure their operations?
So there's a lot of good recommendations in there, a lot of which a lot of people are already doing. But take a look at it, read over it, and make sure that all those points that were discussed in the paper are actually something that you're thinking of. One of the things that I always like to recommend is services like Shodan exist. Use them to help monitor your IP space, not only the ones that you are publicly yours, but a lot of these systems tend to be on cellular networks. So get a list of what cellular networks you have, what the IP addresses of those endpoints are, and continually map those as well and monitor them for any exposures that might have negative consequences for your company.
Okay, that's great. Stephen, thank you so much for your insight, and we'll include a link to the report, 65 pages long before you even get to the citations. So fantastic. Thanks to Trend Micro and Trend Labs for your great work as usual. And now I'll turn it back over to Tom.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Stephen, for sharing your insights on the research that you did with us today. We hope everybody learned something from today's interview, perhaps some good reminders or things that you can start doing within your organization now. Be on the lookout for future behind-the-scenes interviews with our media team and Bruce Sussman. On behalf of SecureWorld Digital, I would like to thank you all for joining us today.